Good day everyone, and welcome back to the channel. It's Londononion here with another Back 4 Blood Cleaner Synergy analysis. And in this video I'm going to be revisiting Act 3 and give an alternative take on what I would consider to be a theoretically sound team for optimal progression. Now it is important to first state the parameters and limitations before undergoing our analysis. As we are all aware, deck builds are essentially the cornerstone of Back 4 Blood. And given the various combinations they can be arranged in, some of our talking points will inherently be rife with nuance and open to alternative opinion. But this is not meant to be a dogmatic presentation. Next, a major part of evaluating synergy will also be centered on acts, and the levels that make them up, each of which requiring different strategies for optimal progression depending on difficulty and corruptions. Additionally, each stage was evaluated with our main areas of difficulty. Lastly, for those that were present for our cleaner role-based deck builds, a good portion of today's discussion will be based on our earlier interpretations of each cleaner's meta, as well as incorporating their role designations and the associated implications. I highly recommend checking out that playlist, which is available in the video description. And of course, we're going to assume the difficulties of both Nightmare and No Hope, which naturally come with heightened corruption demands. Now, since this is a revisit, we will not be re-evaluating the stages of Act 3. However, as a brief recap, we had summarized, overall, Act 3 is well-rounded in its demands and difficulty. In this Onion's experience, however, preparation throughout the Act, especially in anticipation of T5 and Body Dump, is paramount. By preparation, I'm mainly referring to maximizing copper reserves for the purpose of upgrading one's team and building their overall efficacy. This will come with taking special care to adjust to the demands of the adaptation plane, specifically with bonus objectives/challenges such as avoiding hazards, reducing incapacitations, keeping all cleaners alive, and transferring a given specimen container to the safe room for extra copper. Completing these challenges will demand creative strategy and general maturity from a cleaner team. I wouldn't say completing Act 3 is impossible otherwise, but there is a stark difference in performance where a team's abilities are upgraded versus at base level. I would double down on this point when playing on No Hope. So although Act 3 is well-rounded in its difficulty demands, I would argue that special attention should be paid to economy, whether that be through adaptation in accordance with our MADS matrix, or a cleaner team already having their own economic edge in deck builds. Our alternative selections today will have a similar aim, but with less reliance on adaptation, as I use the term, and more on copper production through builds, while also being combatively effective and synergistically beneficial to one another. With all of that said, we will now transition to our cleaner selections based on our previous assessment of Act 3. As usual, I will start with selecting a cleaner fitting for the alpha position, and allow the rest of the team to follow suit from there. So for Act 3, I decided to go with Heng. I have Heng built as a generally effective cleaner, or more personally, a jack of all trades in regards to weapon proficiency. He is also built with the edge of copper production through Bounty Hunter, Copper Scavenger, and Money Grubbers. Lastly, he has a level of health preservation with his own food production, as well as the accumulated effects, whether he consumes said food or not, in addition to Vanguard and Battle Lust. Life insurance also provides 2 additional lives and reduced in-cap trauma. Now Heng's main strength is commensurately his main weakness. As a jack of all trades, he is naturally a master of none, though to finish this common saying, they are usually better off than a master of one. However, in the context of Back 4 Blood, I will at least say that his build can be a double-edged sword. From a tactical perspective, Heng's loadout can really be any weapon due to his build, and with the addition of food effects, he only becomes more effective in their use. The primary is ultimately up to the user, stage demands, and the loadout of his team, though his secondary would be a melee weapon. This gives Heng more versatility than virtually every other cleaner when leading a team. With that said, however, I would least of all recommend leading with an LMG, as they tend to be the most ammo heavy. Looking at our Mads matrix briefly, Hang addresses each plane to a satisfactory degree. From a blitzkrieg perspective, Hang can take on hordes with his melee weapon, and may compensate with his primary for slightly tougher / more dangerous targets. Bosses and tough mutations, however, are where his prowess recedes. From an attrition standpoint, though Hang may not be able to accelerate the completion of objectives or have an edge in minimizing hazards, his edge in food production, as well as his boost in copper production, will make health preservation much easier for him and his team. Lastly, for adaptation, map size is a win-win, most of the time. Large maps, though more demanding on a team, only create more nooks to find food and enhance his team's capabilities. Meanwhile, small maps are simply short-lived. This becomes less of an advantage, however, with finale stages. Small, but unfortunately turbulent. So Hang is naturally generalized, both in build and addressing main areas of difficulty. This leaves room for a wide variety of cleaner options as his backup. So for our cleaner in the major grouping, I selected Holly. Holly is built as a horde clearer with a specialization for close quarters combat using melee weapons and shotguns. She comes with an edge in damage reduction and the supporting attribute of health preservation through a series of cards including her own unique perk. Against hordes, Holly is a part of the top tier for what she can withstand. With the way she is built, she can defend herself for an infinite duration. Even if sustaining damage, her health preservation, damage resistance, and meth head card only keep her health maintained, while making her more dangerous as she remains in combat. Topping this off, Holly comes built with adrenaline fueled, which recovers her stamina as she slays Ridden. Looking at our Mads matrix, Holly is built for the Horde's portion of the Blitzkrieg plane, but also scores points for the attrition plane, not necessarily for avoiding hazards or accelerating objectives, but having the predisposition of simply outlasting their tribulations. The adaptation plane, however, is where Holly makes the least contribution, as she is relatively one-dimensional and cannot provide much compensation for others on her roster. Just like our previous videos, we'll select our rearguard first from the Omega grouping, then determine our team supporter. For this team composition and taking in the level demands, I decided to go with Tala for the rearguard as a boss specialist / mutation hunter. Now there are a series of builds I have outlined Tala with, one SMG, one LMG, and one shotgun based. For the position I have her in, I decided to go with the LMG based build. With this build, Tala could adopt the stereotypical nickname of Glass Cannon. She specializes in general damage and proficiency with LMGs. She comes with a slight edge in copper production with Bounty Hunter, incentivizing the elimination of mutations and to an extent benefiting from their presence if corruptions should boost their numbers. The glass aspect comes in with her having no card-based defenses. Her offense is her main defense. She is, however, built with life insurance, which provides an extra 2 lives. It's Tala's bleed damage that truly makes her fitting as a boss specialist and mutation hunter, allowing her to put down foes faster than most if not all other cleaners. As a small note, I also have Tala built with utility scavenger to aid with opening warped chests. On higher difficulties, I would argue that opening chests without a toolkit causes undue stress on a team's ability to remain combatively effective. When looking at our Mads matrix, Tala mainly covers the Blitzkrieg plane with enhanced Ridden and bosses, with some efficacy to take out crowds. Even when using the bash input, she can put down most basic Ridden, though being in the middle of a crowd is an awful position for her, as she can become incapacitated with ease. Her Jeff Whistle can work as a general aid in dealing with hordes, other mutations, or aiding with recovery depending on circumstances. Her warped chests have the capacity of aiding the team with legendary weapons, attachments, and accessories that would otherwise be unavailable outside of a hive. Both of these perks can provide points in the adaptation plane, though sometimes the Jeff Whistle can spawn near the end of a given stage, which can be annoying. For our last cleaner in the minor grouping, I decided to go with Doc. I have her built with an unparalleled ability for recovering health and trauma. She is also decent in quick recovery from incapacitation. Like the other two cleaners, Doc is rather specialized as being a designated medic with no offense-based cards. Doc's main strength is longevity, provided she has access to medical supplies. Based on our MADS matrix, Doc is one of the main answers to longevity and corruptions, strictly through her high efficacy of keeping her team alive. This does, however, mean that Doc must remain in her protected position so as to remain effective. This is not to say that she cannot fire her weapon, but offense is not necessarily her role. To summarize this team's synergy, Heng is the generalized leader that has a reasonable answer to most threats, but is not specialized enough to be an effective archetype. An edge that he has is copper production, which decreases the required focus on bonus objectives. This is not to say that I recommend ignoring bonus objectives, but having one's own means of copper production may act as a cushion or a bonus. Act 3 can be rather horde heavy in terms of magnitude more so than frequency, especially in the finale stages. This is where Holly can take lead since she is built for endless hordes and sustaining punishment. Now Holly does not come with any extra lives, however, Tala and Heng are both built with life insurance, putting less stress on Doc for life restoration. Now unless the maturity of a given team is severely lacking, Holly should be the only concern in regards to life restoration. Meanwhile, Tala and Heng may require support in health and trauma restoration. For copper production, both Heng and Tala are equipped with Bounty Hunter, which can be an extra 600 units of copper, not including Heng's Money Grubbers and Copper Scavenger cards. Having a surplus of copper makes upgrading the team, including the medical supplies Doc will be using, far easier and more efficacious. Looking at ammo reserves, Heng can theoretically wield anything. Holly occupies shotguns, Tala occupies rifle ammo, Doc would be best with a low caliber weapon, leaving Heng with high caliber. With that said, Heng can lead with an M1A sniper and balance its use with his melee weapons. Now, one of you had a question regarding team positioning with consideration to my arbitrarily coined umbrella roles. In my experience, there really is no cut and dry answer that fits all circumstances, but I would argue that there is an optimal formation for progression, and I'll break down my explanation layer by layer. In regards to roles and positioning while on the move, I would generally say the Alphas lead, Omegas trail, Majors and Minors support in between, with the Minor ideally between the Major and Omega for the greatest degree of protection, as they tend to have superior offensive/defensive builds. Typically, it is the Alpha and Major cleaners that are intended to eliminate most frontal threats. Meanwhile, the Minor limits their offense to self-defense or backup against blindsiding foes. Lastly, the Omega profile surveils the rear of a cleaner team while targeting tough enemies or acting as a tank in the face of imminent threats. It is rather common for cleaner teams to use ammo unnecessarily, with everyone firing at the same horde. This is usually the result of overzealousness, ill preparedness, i.e. not using choke points/easily defensible positions, or a team being too separated, causing a horde to surround and overwhelm disconnected cleaners, with the latter being far more hazardous to a team. Avoiding these outcomes will aid with ammo and health preservation, while also allowing cleaners to stay within their roles for a logical distribution of efforts. This can partially be avoided if a team can stick as a unit, and that, in this Onion's opinion, is performed best when there is a single leader calling the plays, that being the Alpha, who is best equipped for having a satisfactory answer for virtually everything. Speaking on formation, again, this is a theoretically based suggestion, as friendly fire becomes an ever more likely hazard the more close-knit a team is. A common strategy that is employed to minimize this is for leading cleaners to maintain a crouched stance, unless circumstances allow or demand faster movement. A small addition I would make to this is for cleaners to maintain alternating right to left perpendicular formation, or right angles to one another with alternating sides. This will give some freedom for lateral movement of the leading cleaners, while also allowing trailing cleaners a line of sight to provide backup. Now, I can't stress this enough. This is simply a theoretical framework for positioning in respects to roles. Back 4 Blood, especially on the higher difficulties, is far too unpredictable for this to be taken as dogma, but may be a helpful aid for those that are new. There are some caveats to what was discussed. At times, it may be appropriate for roles to be switched, as certain skill sets may be more appropriate for certain level demands. And traversing a stage will naturally cause some breaks in the relate formation. The important part is that a team uses their strengths appropriately. And with that said, thank you for the inquiry, Angelo DiCazzo, if I'm saying that correctly. Otherwise, that essentially sums up our synergy analysis today. Thank you guys for joining me on this one. It has been Londononion, and I will see you guys next time.